Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another creative writing webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about a special type of creative writing. We're going to be talking about writing scripts, writing plays, writing things that people can perform on stage. We have our fun background today because we're going to be talking about performing things on stage. So why not pretend like we're on a stage? Let's see who we have here today. We have AG, Aubrey, Brando, Cora, Evelyn, Isis, Katja, Kiara, Liza, Lorna, Mackenzie, Milo, N. That might be more than one person. Shristi, Simon, Varvara, and there's more people coming in. So hi, everybody. Welcome. A few people are already saying hello in the Q&A box. Hi, everybody. If you have any questions or things that you want to share with us, you can put that in the Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen. So as always, when we do our activities where we'll be writing a little bit, you can write those in the Q&A box. So yeah, one of our viewers, Evelyn, has already shared that they love plays and they were in 4 last year. That is really cool. Awesome. I loved acting in plays too. All throughout school, I was in every play that I could be in. So this is a special subject to me. I really love plays. And hopefully after you guys learn some of this information we're talking about today, maybe some of you will go and write your own plays. That would be really, really awesome. All right. So script writing for plays, writing things that other people can perform in. That's what we're talking about today. Let's start. So writing a play. Some parts of writing a play script are very similar to writing a story or a book. Many of the same rules of telling a story still apply, such as show, don't tell. So basically, a play that's performed on stage has a lot of similarities to a book or a short story or anything else that you would write. A writer, an author such as yourself, has to come up with an idea. You have to have a strong communication that you want to tell. You're going to need to have a beginning, a middle, an end. You'll have to have a hero that kind of goes on a journey through the course of the story. So a lot of the other information that we've covered in earlier webinars about creative writing, all of those things will also apply to a script that you're writing for a play. The biggest difference, of course, is that usually the stories that you write to go into a short story or a book won't be performed on stage. Although some, if they're really good, they get adapted later on, right? So there's a lot of differences too. We're all familiar with what a page of a book looks like. It's important as a writer to follow the rules of grammar and using paragraphs, but other than that, you pretty much just tell your story. You'll break it down into chapters. You'll have, the information of a story gets broken down by chapters, and within a chapter, you'll have paragraphs. You can see over here, this is just a random page taken from a random book. But you pretty much just write the story paragraph by paragraph. You just tell everything that you want to tell. A script page is very different because stage plays, on the other hand, follow a lot more rules. This is because they are the directions that real people are going to follow to perform what you wrote. If you've ever been in a play before, you've seen a page of a script like this. You've followed these directions. There are, rules to how this looks on a page. In a story or book, the stage you're writing for is in the reader's mind. In a play, everything you write will take place on a stage in the real world. That's a pretty big difference. As you start thinking about your story and what you want to write about, think about the real life actors that could perform it and the real life locations it could be performed in. You'll have to decide what to include in your story based on this. You have to keep the real world location of the stage in mind when you write a play. It's fun to put a car chase in a short story, but how would your actors perform one on stage? You absolutely can have a car chase in your play, but you'll have to figure out a clever way to show that on stage. Maybe you can have 2 actors sit in chairs next to each other and pretend they're in a moving car. So here's a picture from a very famous musical stage play. This is from Wicked. It retells the story of the Wizard of Oz, but from a different angle. So Wicked, when it's performed, it's usually on really big stages and big cities. They have a big budget for special effects and lighting. They are lifting up the main actress here. I don't know if they're using like a crane or they're using ropes or what they're doing to lift her up, but you know, you can tell they have a lot of money and a lot of technology and a lot of skill goes into putting, to making this play. So when the playwright, that means the person, the author of the play, the person who wrote it, created this play, they probably knew that they were going to have like a lot of money and a lot of skill and technology at their, a lot of this was going to be available, so they could write a story that would take a lot of that into account. But on the other hand, if you're just starting out writing a play and maybe it'll be something your friends perform, or maybe something that you could get other students at your school to perform, you might have to, limit it to, tables and chairs and something that some simple costumes could be performed with. I think this is a picture from like a community theater. That's like a small town theater. It's a simple play, but even, small theaters and, small casts, you can still create some amazing art. You can create an amazing play. It doesn't have to have huge sets with lots of special effects and lights and whatnot. So that's the first thing to think about when you're writing a play, is before you get your heart set on something that's like gigantic and has lots of moving parts, you might need to think about what you have available, what it's possible to even, for somebody in your situation to perform. Now, it's totally okay just for fun to write a script that would take a giant stage and would take special effects and maybe fire explosions and a giant robot head needs to come in. And that might all be fun. But if you want to actually see your work performed, you should think about what you have available when you write it. So it's also, I think, for playwrights that are starting out and they're creating scripts, and they're learning and they're practicing, you should really try to make sure that you can have somebody perform your play. After you've written it and you actually have people performing it, you'll hear what it sounds like. You'll hear what your words sound like when actors say them. You'll see what, when you actually get it performed, you might be thinking to yourself, I see what I want to try a little bit differently. Maybe the first time you get your family or your friends to perform something that you wrote, you can go back and you can write a second draft. You can make little fixes or changes to it. Or maybe the next script that you write, you'll know, I saw that I accidentally gave one character way more lines than everybody else. So this time I'm going to try to balance it a little bit more. So here's your first activity. I want you to think of a place where you could perform a play you wrote. This might be a stage at your school or even your living room, based on size or other limitations. And that would be like, what are some things you're gonna have to think about when you write your play? If everybody is still at home right now, that's one limitation. You're gonna have to perform what you write at home. So how will this space affect your story? How can you get creative with it? Maybe, you have a giant couch in your living room. Maybe that can be part of your set. Or maybe the stage at your school actually has the ability to have like a harness and ropes and you can lift somebody up. So maybe you can write a play that when everybody's back in school, you can actually use that. So think of a place that you could perform a play that you wrote. And I want you to describe in the Q&A box how this space could affect your story, or how could you get creative with it. If you say maybe your school doesn't have a stage and doesn't have a theater, well, where could you perform your play? Could you perform it outside or on the basketball court? If you performed on the basketball court, maybe you could write a play that actually had somebody playing basketball in it. If maybe if you're going to perform in your living room at home and you have a giant fish tank, maybe you could write a play that takes place under the ocean and you pretend that the fish tank is part of the underwater animals and things behind a submarine. So get creative, choose a place that you could perform and describe to me in the Q&A box how you could use that location, use that setting for your script. And while you guys start thinking about that and writing that, I'm just going to see if we have any questions. or anything in the Q&A box. One of our viewers says that their dad was an actor. That's awesome. You might know a lot more about this already from knowing somebody that's been in plays or been in movies. Mackenzie says that they've only been in 2 plays. Hey, 2 plays, that's a great start. Some people have never been in a play before. So if you've been in 2, you probably already know a lot. That's awesome. Yeah, some viewers that came in a little bit later we're talking about writing scripts, writing plays. So yeah, we're going to be learning about how you write a script for something that you could have other people perform. So one person asks, do they have to? You don't have to, but if you want to, write in the Q&A box how you could use an interesting setting, how you could use your school or your living room or your front lawn, or where could you perform a play? How could you get creative with it? How might that affect what you write? You could just think about this, but if you can think of a good answer and you want to share it with us, go ahead and write that in the Q&A box. All right, so Isis says, when school starts again, I could use my school stage or the gym. That's awesome. So how could you use that space to write a play? How might that affect what you write? Can you think of anything right now that you might want to write a script about? Katya says that they could probably perform in their living room. Very cool. So knowing that your living room would be the space that you're going to perform in, Katya, what kind of story do you want to write? What kind of script would you write about? Okay, Katya had another comment here. They say they're going to use their living room and use the coffee table and pretend I am having tea. Oh, that sounds fun. Evelyn says they're going to use their yard as the place that they will perform their play. So they're thinking that their script will have woodland fairies in it. I love that idea. Let's see. Shristi says that they can make a play where someone has an adventure in their own dreams, and the first scene and the last scene could be in their bedroom. Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah. If you performed it where somebody maybe falls asleep and they have dreams, having a bed there would be really useful for a scene like that. Milo says they could have a play that takes place in their living room, and it could be like somebody was robbing the house. Yeah, that'd be really creative. If you set up your stage in such a way that like the front door was, you know, part of the stage where the play was taking place, you could have the audience sit back in chairs and people come in through the front door and they act and they talk. That'd be really fun. Let's see. Madison says that at their school, there's a stage that's kind of small and has curtains. For effects, we could use a fog machine or a black light, maybe make some cool backdrops too. Yeah. So if you have access to a whole stage and like a fog machine and stuff, you already have like way more cool things that you could do. So that sounds fun. Let's see. Fallon says that they have an open space in front of their stairs. There's a couch and a piano there. Maybe they could put something on the couch and use it as a prop. There could be a scene with music in the background, or maybe the narrator could play the piano in the background based on the setting. Maybe one could hide behind the couch and pop out once in a while. Not sure of what story though. Pirates? Pirates would be awesome. I think that's a great idea for a story, Fallon. That sounds really fun. AG says that they could pretend that their backyard is the jungle with a few characters escaping from wild animals. Our backyard has vines on a fence and it has a lot of interesting plants on a tiny hill in the back. We could use that as props for the jungle. We don't have a lot of room, however. That sounds fine. Sounds like you're already getting really creative with the space you do have. A lot of theaters, there's a type of theater called a black box theater where it's basically just like a smaller room that all the walls and the ceiling, the floor are all painted black, and they just use like folding chairs, and usually can't fit a very big cast or a very big audience. And they just sort of make do with the space that they have. So it sounds like in the same way, you're getting creative with the space that you have. Sounds really cool. Isha says, my mom's friend has a big gazebo, so I can do it there. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, Isis is describing that there's a backstage at the theater that they have at their gym. If they use the stage, everyone would be looking up. If I use the gym, they would have to sit on bleachers and look down. You're already thinking about the space and the sight lines and everything. That's great. Liza says their backyard they could use, and it could be a story about animals and mythical animals. Oh, I love it. That's great. Awesome. So you guys are having a lot of great answers here. Very cool. So yeah, keep on sharing your ideas as you come up with them. We're going to go on to the next part. All right. So when you write a play, there are a lot of rules for how the page looks. Stage play scripts start with a list of all the characters in the play. You don't have to worry about writing this until after you've completed the script, but I wanted you to see what it looks like. There'll be the title of the script, of course, but when you open it up, it usually has the name of it. It describes like how long it is. This says it's a 2-act play. Acts are the major divisions of a play. A lot of plays will have 2 acts or maybe 3 acts, but it's like the big chunks. Usually the curtain closes after each act, and maybe you let people take a little break while you move things around on stage. So this comes from a Peter Pan script. It's adapted from the book, the classic Peter Pan book. And cast of characters, this means these are all the parts in the play. This script, it describes some of them, describes some of the characters. And this one, not every play does this, but this one actually breaks it down by number of lines. That means how many lines or how many things does each person actually say? If you were trying out for a script, if you're trying out for a play, you would maybe want to know how many lines am I going to have to say? Wendy, as the main character of the Peter Pan story, has 157. In this script, she has more lines even than the title character, Peter, who down here only has 106. But the Lost Boys, it lists out how many lines they have. The Pirates, how many lines they have. Of course, Captain Hook is the main bad guy. He has more lines than any of the other bad guys. So that's all important information. But when you write your own play, you might not need to include this, or you would only write this when you were all done, because you would want to write your story first and then count up how many lines they have and list out who all the characters are. You don't really need to think about this before you're writing it. The next part of a play script, it says setting. It usually describes to the audience or the reader, whoever's going to be looking at the script, it tells them what time and what place does this story take place. Time, several days and nights during the summer of 1910. Place, there are 5 settings: the nursery at the Darling residence in Bloomsbury, London, Neverland, the lagoon, the Lost Boys cave, and the pirate ship. So you're just telling people right at the beginning, where do things take place in this story? And synopsis of scenes. Synopsis, that's just a fancy word that's basically saying, we're summing it up here. This is the list of all the scenes in the play. Act 1 and Act 2, those are the big chunks of the story, and scenes are the smaller chunks of the story. You might have the curtain close after each one of these scenes, or you might not. You might be able to have your actors just move things around and the next scene starts. So yeah, this is another thing that you don't really need to focus on this till after you've written your play, but it is useful to your actors that once you've actually written the whole script and you have all the story written down, play scripts usually have this information on the front to help the actors. Because again, the big difference between a play script and a book or a novel is that in a book or a novel, you're just telling the whole story to your audience, which is the reader. The stage will just be their imagination. They're just going to be imagining everything that you describe. All the different characters and the actors will also just be people that your reader is just imagining. But when you write a script, you have to think about not only the real place that's going to take place, but the real people that will be performing it. You have to give them the information about how long is this thing? Where does it take place? What's everything supposed to look like? So as you write a script, be thinking with the fact that not only is your script a communication to your audience, it's also a communication to your actors and the people that will be performing. As a person who's writing a play, you don't actually usually get to go on stage. You're not going to be the one communicating your story to the audience, unless you're also an actor in the script. You're going to have other people give your communication for you. So it's very important that you give them clear instructions on what you want them to do. All right, so this is page 1 of a Peter Pan script, that same script. Notice the difference between scene descriptions and dialogue. So the first thing that you see here, it says Act 1 and then Scene 1, and then it says at rise. That usually means when the curtain rises up. So there's going to be a curtain in front of the stage and it pulls up and reveals your whole set. Here it describes the nursery and the Darling residence in Bloomsbury, London. Nursery is, the room where the kids in a family lived. Residence just means that's their home. So the nursery and the Darling home in Bloomsbury, London. A summer evening in 1910, Wendy sits in her bed with John and Michael sitting on either side of her. The window is open and the room is dimly lit. Nana, that's their dog, lies center stage sleeping. So one thing that you'll notice here is that every time they mention a character for the first time, they put their name in all capital letters. That's to help the actors spot when they are coming on stage or when the script mentions them. Again, this is to help your actors do what they're supposed to do. In this case, if they miss that, oh, I had lines on this page, well, you can help them by making their name in capital letters. The next thing you'll notice is that in a book, there might be like a paragraph or 2 paragraphs or more of description. Here, there's just one kind of telling you what the stage looks like, and it jumps right into what the characters are saying. That's because in a stage play, the characters and what they say and what they do, that's what's really going to tell the story. You're not going to have tons and tons of paragraphs of description because it's just the actors that would be reading it. And the actors pretty much just need to read that one time and then start memorizing their lines. So when you're writing a play script, you don't need to put a ton of description there. You can just give like a paragraph of description for the person who's setting up the stage. But after that, you got to get into the lines. You got to tell your actors what they're supposed to be saying. So as you read down this page, you'll notice it says Wendy, Michael, John, Wendy, Michael, John, Wendy, Michael, John, kind of back and forth. And it's just showing their conversation. Their names are bold. They're on the left-hand side. This is one way of writing a script. You'll also notice on the furthest left-hand side, it says 1, 5, 10, 15. Those numbers are just kind of counting down. You'll notice that where it says 1, that's the first line of the page. Then 5 is the 5th line down, etc. That's helpful for when a director is actually working with the actors and he wants to maybe point something out, or he wants to, maybe somebody forgot their line. Those numbers there help them spot where things are on the page quickly. People maybe working backstage could use those numbers too to kind of see where things are at on the page while it's being performed. So another thing to notice on this page, the writer, whoever wrote it, they're splitting up the dialogue, the talking of the characters. You don't just have Wendy going on and on and on and on for an entire page. They break it up. Wendy gets to say something, then Michael and John, Wendy, Michael, John, Wendy, Michael, John. It goes back and forth a lot. If you're going to have people perform in a play for you, you want to give them stuff to do. People are more likely to want to be in your play if there's lots of good parts. Each actor and actress should get to say interesting things and do interesting things. So when you're writing your script and you're kind of looking back at what you wrote, make sure that you're breaking it up and you're giving everybody something to do. Even the smallest parts, and sometimes people want a small part. They don't want to say a lot. You should still give every part some lines and something interesting to do. So on this page, this is a different page of the script, notice the directions given to actors. In a story or book, you can describe these actions to the reader. In a play, the actors will have to perform what you want the audience to see. So you'll notice, look at the first few lines of the page. Mrs. Darling, you wouldn't dare. Peter, and just why wouldn't I? Mrs. Darling, Nana wouldn't hurt a fly. Shh, down, Nana, down. And then in parentheses here, and they've made it in italics where the words are slanty, Nana grabs onto Peter's shadow and pulls it off. So this is describing something to the actor. You would have one actor here playing Nana the dog and another actor playing Peter. You're telling the actors what you want them to do. You'll notice that, again, this description here is not super long because it's kind of up to the performers and it's up to the director how they want to do that. The writer of the script is not spending a ton of time telling them how to do things. It's just telling them what they do. Anytime you see the parentheses, those lines that look like this, you know, the lines like that, that's a direction to the actors. Further down the page, Peter, I want my shadow. And then in parentheses, it says, Nana barks more furiously now. So it's telling them what they're supposed to be doing, even in the middle of other people's lines. Further down, you can use those marks between 15 and 20 on the left-hand side. Mrs. Darling has a line, and then it gives a long description. You know, Wendy does so, takes the shadow from Nana, holds it up. It is a silhouette of Peter, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot more description here, but then it's the end of scene 1. So probably towards the end of a scene or the beginning of a scene, you could have a little bit more description. But in general, let the actors do the acting for you. That kind of goes back to that rule we've talked about in a different webinar of show, don't tell. You want to give lots of things for the actors to do, lots of things for the actors to say, but you shouldn't spend a lot of time as the person writing the play doing tons of description of what things look like and tons of description for the actors, because you might also be the director of your play, but you should kind of leave it to the director and the actors to figure out a lot of the how they're going to move around and how they look and how they act. You as the writer of the play, you mostly decide what they're going to say and what the scene just looks like. All right, so next, activity 2. Try writing a scene description. This is not the dialogue. This is not what the characters are going to say, but I want you to write a scene description. This is like right here, you see in this picture, right here, lights up the nursery in the evening several days later. Or at the end of it, where it's describing what the characters are doing at the end of the scene. I want you to think about the physical space you want the set designer, the actors, and the audience to see. The set designer is the person who's going to set up your stage. They're going to decide what kind of furniture goes here. What kind of, should we paint a wall in the background? What should the lights look like? All that kind of stuff. So think about if this is at your school or if this is in your living room, well, what do I want the scene to look like? Write me a paragraph where you describe the scene. Again, there should not be any characters talking in this part. I just want you to write down what the scene should look like. So go ahead, just make it up. You can be describing a scene for any play. But hopefully, you know, you could write something that you could perform in your own play. And while you guys start doing that, I'll see if there's any other information in the Q&A box. One person asks about, is there a way to read other people's comments? There is not. The Q&A box, everything that you share just goes to me. It doesn't go to the other people watching. One person said, what is your name? My name is Corey. Nice to meet you. Oh, Isa says that their brother was in the play Peter Pan. That's fun. I'm glad I used that example. One attendee says that they get stage fright when they act, and that's why they're going to be a playwright. Well, that's another way to be an artist, and that's another way to perform. So I'm glad to hear it. Evelyn asks, is a play script harder to write than a movie script? That's a good question. I think it really depends on you and what kind of story you want to tell. In some ways, a play script might be easier because you only have one location. That's just the stage of your, it's just the stage of wherever you're performing it. In a movie script, there's a lot more places that you could be filming. There might be a lot more kinds of things to think about. So Just off the top of my head, I think that maybe a play script is a little bit easier to write than a movie script. In another webinar, by the way, we are going to be talking about movie scripts. So if you're interested in movie scripts, tune in for that one. Check the schedule. All right. Isha says, in my play, there will be an ordinary girl who is actually a world-class criminal. She looks so innocent, though. When someone figures it out, she threatens him until he teaches her how to be nice. This sounds like a really fun play. She goes on, she describes a lot more. Awesome. All right, Milo says, here's a scene description. Milo says, the house is dark. The scene starts with the robber near the door and the dad staring at him, getting a drink of juice. So it sounds like Milo's script starts with the actors already on stage. So your scene description, you would want to say that you would want to tell the actors and the director and everybody else, the scene will start right in the middle of the action. When the curtain rises or when the lights turn on, the robber is already there. The dad is getting juice at the fridge, and we go. Evelyn says that the stage will have trees in the background and flowers all around. That's very awesome. Good. Milo says that he performs magic on stage and that he had to work to just get over stage fright. He says, you just have to get over it. Sounds like that's advice to one of our other viewers. All right, Isis says that in their play, it starts at the beach at sunset. Two dragons are fighting and yelling at each other. One dragon is blue and pink, the other is green. So it sounds like your scene description, Isis, you would want to tell the director and the set designer that the stage should look like a beach at sunset. Maybe you could use a projector and project a sun going down on the back of the stage. Or maybe you would want to paint a sun on the wall. Maybe put some seashells and things to make it look like the beach. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, Shristi says, lights start to brighten and beautiful leaves swirl around the person and create a rainbow of auburn leaves. The magical leaves transport the person to a different place. Okay, that sounds really fun. So there, we're already getting into a description of what happens in the play itself. But for your scene description, you'd want to tell the person designing the set or the director, the actors, what should the scene even look like when the play starts? So if you want leaves to be swirling around, maybe your scene description should say, right before the curtain rises, somebody off stage turns on a fan, and as the scene starts, they drop some leaves in front of the fan, so leaves are blowing across the stage during the scene. That'd be really fun. But with scene description also, like, what do you want the stage to look like? What should be on the stage, or what should the lights look like? Feel free to fill in some of that stuff too. So AG says in their scene, sun is shining on the backyard. Two characters are already on stage, but there's thick vines everywhere, and there are exotic and weird plants around them. So very cool. Yeah, so you're telling everybody that's going to be making your play, when the scene starts, there should be all these cool plants around, there should be vines, and there should be sunlight. So if that's in your backyard, do it during the day, of course. If you're on a stage, you'd probably want a bright light shining to make it look like daylight, sunlight. All right, here's Fallon's. Fallon says, the curtain opens. It is a dark, foggy night, midnight. Jay wanders through dark woods from stage right. That means when you're looking out at the audience, what's on your right? That would be stage right. There are tree set items scattered around the stage. A wooden moon hangs over it. Fog from a fog machine settles on the stage. A silhouette comes out of the gloom, stage left, Falcon. Cue the actors. That's awesome, Fallon. Sounds like you have some experience doing this already. Very, very cool. Katya says, flowers are blooming, trees are swaying, and there is a vase of purple flowers and roses. The vase is beside a portrait of a family. The flowers in the portrait are inside the palace court. Very cool. So you've got different plants. By saying palace court, you might want to tell more description to your set person and to your director. You might want to tell them, if it's in a palace, maybe you need some big chairs to be thrones. Maybe there should be fancy cloth hanging from the walls to look like, you know, the tapestries or wall hangings in like a throne room. That'd be very cool. Fallon says they've never actually written a play before, but it sounds like you have. I think you're picking this up quickly. Good job. Madison says, you open up on a scene with a warm fireplace with stockings hung on it and cozy couches with a small dog sitting on a rug in front of the fire and a very grand Christmas tree with presents underneath it. Madison, that's a great job. That, you know, I feel like I can see the whole scene in my mind. Like I can see the stage. I've directed plays before, and I really like a good scene description that makes me just picture the whole thing in my mind. So very good job. All right, good. Let's move on to our next thing, which is another activity. So we just did a scene description. Now I want you to write a few lines of dialogue. And this, of course, just make it up. You can just, you know, use your imagination, write whatever you want. But since it's lines of dialogue between two characters in a play, make sure to write their names and describe anything you want them to do. So let's go back really quickly and look at this script here. You see how it puts, every time a new actor talks, it always puts their name there. You always need to tell the person, it's your turn again, actor. Make sure that you put something there to say that it's that person's turn to talk. Your actors are real people that they're gonna need help. So if you don't put the name before every time they say something, they might not know that it's their turn to talk when they're memorizing their lines. So put their name at the beginning of the line. And then if you want them to do anything, you need to put it in parentheses, those curved lines like that. Because you need to tell them what you want them to do, but keep it short. Most of the lines of dialogue should be what the characters are actually saying. So write a few lines of dialogue between your characters. Make sure you put their name at the beginning. Anything you want them to do is in parentheses, keep it short. And then most of the lines should be, what are the actors saying? What are they saying back and forth to each other? Have fun with it, be creative, have them say whatever you want, but try to write a few lines of dialogue. Evelyn's saying that ballets, like a dance performance, need description, but no dialogue. Yeah, that's true. I think in ballets, usually there's no lines. Like the dancers in a ballet don't speak. They don't say things usually. So yeah. If you were writing, I'm not actually sure how you would write a ballet, because I feel like most of a ballet would just be choreography. It'd be working with the dancers and figuring out all their movements, working with the people that are making the music. I'm not sure what you would write for a ballet. Maybe you just kind of write a broad outline of what's happening in each scene. You'd probably write what the backgrounds look like, what the lighting looks like. Maybe you might say, like, this dance needs to be very sad because this is a sad part of the ballet. You know, this dance needs to look very happy because this is a happy part. Oh, some viewers are saying when you hit enter, it just submits what you already typed. So it's kind of hard to, write two people talking back and forth. I would say don't hit enter, just write the first person's dialogue, give it space bar once or twice, write the next person's dialogue. That way I can see the conversation between two people. But again, don't hit enter, because then it'll say, oh, you're done with this comment, and your whole dialogue will get broken up. So don't hit enter, just hit a couple spaces when you do that. So anybody that's already, I see a few commenters, it's like they started a dialogue, but it's just part of it. And then so feel free to go back, rewrite it so that you have more than one person. Just leave it in a big long line and I'll read it back and forth as soon as I see it. All right, let's see. I think you guys are still working on these. A few people are saying Whoops, I didn't mean to hit enter yet. Don't worry about it. We have 5 minutes left, so take your time, write some dialogue back and forth. I'll read some as soon as I see some come in. Shristi says, I have a question. What is a pantomime? A pantomime is another type of dramatic performance. Do you want to look up the definition of that? Maybe in an online dictionary and share the definition with us? If you find a good definition, Shristi, I'll read it out loud. Let's see. Here's some dialogue from April. April said, so the first character's name is James, and it says, this is space. And then Diego says, yes, this is James. It sounds like you're writing some dialogue from one of our other webinars. April's play sounds like it's about James and Diego, the space guys. They will be pleased to know that a script is being written about them. April says, yes, that is correct. April, it sounds like your whole play could take place in the cockpit of a spaceship flying into space, and the two pilots of that spaceship that maybe have funny adventures and get into arguments about how to fly the spaceship. I would read that, or I would watch that play. That'd be a lot of fun. I can tell you guys are going to do some good work on this one. You guys are spending a few minutes writing your dialogue. I'm excited to read it when it comes in. One viewer earlier had a question about using, I guess, Google Meet or something. I'm not sure why it asked about Google Meet, or if you got an email about that. We only ever use Zoom for our webinars. The same links that you've been using every time, that's what we're using. If you read something about Google Meet, I'm not sure what that's about, but we don't use Google Meet for any of our webinars. So I hope that answers your question. All right, here's some dialogue from Evelyn. It sounds like there's 3 characters here. There's a character named Wayside, a character named Camilla, and a character named Daisy. So Wayside, oh no, it's raining again. Camilla, well, it's rainy raptor day, you know. Daisy says, I like rainy raptor day. And Wayside says, well, I don't like it. So very nice, some discussion about the weather. Now I'm really curious what rainy raptor day is. That kind of makes it sound like dinosaurs are falling from the sky. I want to know more. All right, AG says, Martha, do you think these plants are poisonous? Spencer, and it says, Spencer says, maybe, and there's some scene description of Spencer reaches out for a plant. Martha, don't touch. Spencer, uh-oh. And the vines start moving towards Spencer. Spencer says, ah, help. I love it. Very good job, AG. Most of it was dialogue, but you had some short descriptions of what the characters are doing. Perfect job. Well done, AG. All right, this is from Isis. So Isis starts off with a little bit of scene description. It says, 2 people walk on stage from the left. One is a girl, one is a boy. Angel, we are not friends. We are partners in crime. Plus, you are super annoying, and the only reason I chose you to help is because you have things I need. The other person is Hugo. Hugo says, I think that you are secretly in love with me, and that is why you chose me to help you. And you think everyone is annoying. Angel says, because everyone is annoying. And Hugo says, interesting. And Angel says, you are so aggravating. Very fun, Isis. It sounds like you have a love story here. Plus, when you say partners in crime, maybe it's like a heist. Maybe they're going to like rob a bank or something. But at first they start out not liking each other, but they grow to love each other. That's a good plot. All right. Katja says, Mendy, I don't know what the piece means. Jack, how are we going to know if we don't even know where it came from? Evie, here we go again. Mendy, yep. That sounds like a bit of comedy there. I like it, Katja. Good job. All right, this is from Fallon. And the 2 characters are Jay and Falcon. All right, Jay says, there's a little bit of scene description. Jay walks in from stage right, then stops, wary. Who's there? Show yourself. Falcon comes in from stage left in the shadows. Why should I? Maybe I want to stay here. Jay says, well, then what do you want? Why hide yourself? Falcon laughs. What if I told you that I'm a vampire and I want to drink your blood? And Falcon springs forward, fangs bared, towards Jay, saying, boo! And it goes on. Very good job, Fallon. Good script there. All right, Madison has Annabelle and James. Annabelle, I dare you to climb to the top of that tree. James, but that's like 50 feet high. Annabelle, then I guess I win the game. James, okay, fine, I'll do it. But if I break my leg, it's your fault. Annabelle, hey, but then you'll be like Evan Hansen. That's a character from a famous current musical. Very good job, Madison. Isis says about her story, it's not a love story, it's just supposed to be funny. Awesome. Well, you guys are doing a great job with your scripts there. Very well done. I really hope that you take this opportunity to write some scripts. You know, while everybody's still at home, write some scripts, get your families to perform them. This is a free script writing software that you can use. I'm pretty sure it's still free. I've used this before. CELTX.com. I'm not sure if that stands for something or if you're supposed to say that like Celtics.com. I'm not sure. Anyway, they have there's one that you can pay for, but they also have free script writing software. You know, check with your parents, make sure it's okay to use this or to download this. I think it needs an email address to sign up. But if it's all right with your parents, you can use Celtics.com, CELTX.com, to write scripts. You can actually use this to write play scripts or to write movie scripts. But the software actually kind of helps you write a script in the right format. There is more than one way to make a play script look. So their way might look a little bit different than the script I showed you, but a lot of different scripts will all look different. So if you want to get a website or some software to actually write your own script, you can use this website. Write this down. I'll leave it up for just a few more seconds so you can write it down. And I'll talk about this software again in my movie script writing webinar. So if you want to check it out then too, you can see it there. But yeah, if you want to try using some actual script writing software, you can use Celtics.com to do that. But if you want to keep it simple, you can also just use, you know, Microsoft Word or Google Docs or anything else that you can type on. You can just write your script, print it out, have some friends or family read it, and start hearing how your scripts sound out loud. As always, keep on writing. That is the best way to get practice and to get better. Just keep on going. So this week, I hope you write some scripts. That'll be really awesome. All right, so our next webinar, I believe, I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or next week. I'll have to look at the schedule again, but we're also going to talk about movie scripts. This is our second to last week. Next week is our last week of these webinars. So I hope you guys tune in and do some more creative writing. I'll see you guys next time.